These works are part of a series I call the statues. I came to use figures from the European art canon in my work as stand-ins for flesh and blood figures. This way the scenes in my paintings become a little more anonymized and can play out detached from associations a viewer might have about any single individual subject. All of my work is based on my personal experience, so I consider them self-portraits. The themes in each painting vary, but are mostly centered around my memories and feelings. Grandma's Kitchen is an amalgamation of memories of my maternal grandmother, while Sin Nudes examines the tension between expression of feminine sexuality and society's expectations of women. These two works are more amorphous in that they're about ideas and interpretations rather than single events, while the rest of the works in the series are more situationally specific. In these works, I set up scenes that act as a stage where the themes of the painting can play out. The scenes are reflective of the state of mind I'm trying to portray, and I use elements like color, imagery, and architecture to establish the tone of the work. Congrats, I guess, is about hearing that an ex is engaged. It's a combination of being generally very happy with your life while also now having to deal with dredged up, difficult memories. To show this juxtaposition, I wanted to create a scene with bright, cheerful colors and imagery, like the rainbow or the wedding cake, which is in contrast to the frustrated, almost spiteful actions of the main subject. Balcony is a very specific memory I have about being in a relationship that was coming to an end. The space in the painting is representative of what this experience felt like. The open field, the cloudy background, the brick wall, and cold balcony with no visible entrance or exit all come together to create a desolate, eerie scene that amplify the experience of isolation within a relationship.
Hello, my name is Latrelle Rostant. The work I have presented in this show is prompted by wanting to reflect my cultural identity in the objects I make. My work, what is assumed is not what's presented, comprises of a woven object and my modular loom. This tool for weaving and the woven object came about through my understanding that I occupy a third space. This space allows me to take parts of the different things I know and assemble them in a way that reflected how I understand myself within the culture that surrounds me. This approach to making came about by looking at the carnival culture of Trinidad and Tobago, the country where I was born. Carnival is a third space that allowed the new occupants of the island to take parts of their different cultures and make a new culture that reflected the space they now occupy. I use my tool and process of making to understand how culture is seen from within versus how it is perceived from the outside. I'm also looking at how culture occupies different spaces and how objects created within those spaces become an archive of moments that no longer exist. My process for making shifted when I realized in order for me to make in the way that I wanted to make, I had to make a tool that would facilitate the making of the objects I wanted to make. The modular loom, which is a tool for weaving that I developed, designed, and made myself, is a structure for weaving that allows me to make woven objects. Once the modular loom is assembled and woven upon, the modular loom has to be disassembled in order for the woven object to be removed from it. The woven object takes on the memory of how it was woven on the modular loom. It then becomes the archive of an iteration of the modular loom that no longer exists.
Las Orillas del Mundo is an ever-expanding body of work that I've been continuously working on since 2016. Through analog photographic processes, I've been investigating and documenting several ancestral locations across northeastern New Mexico, primarily Cuervo, La Manga, and Montoya. My work is also heavily embedded in researching and collecting historical documents tracing my family to the land of New Mexico. Cuervo, a small town in Guadalupe County, is where my great-grandfather was born in 1891. The town was established in 1901 alongside the Southern Pacific Railroad. The town opened to cattle ranching by 1910. Cuervo Church is still standing and was built in World War I. The town peaked in the 1940s, but by the 50s the population had fallen to less than 150 people. When I-40 was built, it completely bypassed Cuervo, and the town immediately began to die. The town currently supports less than 50 people who primarily live on outlying ranches. Montoya, a small town located just off of historic Route 66, about 20 miles east of Cuervo. My grandmother was born here. Their house was located on Ozark Trail, right beside the railroad tracks. Many of my ancestors are buried in Montoya Cemetery. The town was established in 1901 and was originally called Roundtree after its first postmaster. In 1902, the area became a loading point for the Southern Pacific Railroad and was then known as Montoya. The U.S. highway system was created in 1926, and Route 66 was built in line with the previous state highway, which was a dirt road. Montoya was a major hub. Richardson's store was a popular stop serving local ranchers, workers, and travelers passing through. Richardson's store opened in 1908 and was the hub of the town. The store was in business until the mid-70s, when the owner passed away. Richardson's store was then listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1978. The roof collapsed in 2014, and the building continues to deteriorate. In 1956, Interstate I-40 was built and led to Montoya's demise. The town currently has few inhabited homes, one working ranch, and many abandoned structures. La Manga, a small town located in San Miguel County, is just outside of Las Vegas, New Mexico. My great-grandmother Romanita was born here in 1900. Her grandfather, Juan de Dios Maese, was a first settler in the early 1800s and was the first mayor of Las Vegas, New Mexico. My newest work, Ozark Auto Trail, addresses the connection of these three locations. The two larger pieces have images of San Miguel County, along with a 1910 census record that shows my great-grandparents with their respective families prior to getting married in 1915. The skinnier piece showcases a photograph of Montoya Cemetery, and embedded in the frame is dirt collected from all three locations. It is named Ozark Auto Trail after the Ozark Trail, which was a network of locally maintained roads predating the U.S. federal highway system. This would have been the route that my great-grandfather would have traveled in order to meet my great-grandmother and for them to settle in Montoya. The work connects my family to these towns and ties us into a larger history. Southern Pacific is a photograph of the railroad passing through Montoya. Paired with it is my great-grandfather's safety certificate for the Southern Pacific Railroad. He was the first Hispanic foreman to work for the railroad. Quay County is a photograph that showcases the vast land where Montoya is located. Paired with it is a photograph of my great-grandfather, around 23 years old. Before he worked for the railroad, he was a cowboy. T4 Ranchland is a photograph showcasing the T4 Ranch in Montoya alongside the railroad. The T4 Ranch is basically the only current operation in Montoya and was established in 1902. Paired with it is a postcard showcasing Montoya around 1910. None of the buildings in the postcard are still around. Memoria La Misión is a photograph of the church in Garita, New Mexico, paired with a photograph of my great-grandmother and her sister who lived in Garita. Exploring the thought that land has memory, recording all that took place there, has become a catalyst in linking the elusive aspects of memory, identity, and family history into something tangible.
Most of my works are about my experiences that I have back in Iran, growing up there as a woman. So for this series, the idea is coming from that until last year, women in Iran, they were not allowed to go to stadium, especially soccer stadiums. So I've never been in any, and I don't have any first-hand experiences. I was always watching games online, on TV, or watching part of it on social media, or just looking at images. And actually, the series started from that I started to finding images from the internet which all of them are from one specific stadium, the biggest one in Iran, which located in Tehran, my hometown. And that part is interesting as well. It made me think more about that place, that public place that I couldn't go. It was in my hometown. I could just pass from it. So when I started finding those images, I could find out more about the building itself, and finding out, for example, about the entrance doors, the exit, the seats, the field, everything. And I kind of found out more about the history of it, which it's interesting because they built it before Islamic Revolution in my country. And when that happened, at that time, women could go. But after revolution, women couldn't go anymore. The way that I use acrylic which part of it is transparent, is going back to my experience that I had back in art school in dark rooms. I remember while I was developing a photo in darkroom, I was always seeing that part of the photo is coming up first, developed first. You can see it while still the other parts are in process. And I was interested in that. And I was trying to do something the same in my painting. And the pink squares that I have, one of the reason is nowadays we're experiencing the whole world from the screens, from our phones, from computers, TV, and a screen is something that always is present in our life. And I'm thinking about that in my paintings. And part of it, the frame in frame, is something that I'm borrowing it from Persian miniature, which back in undergrad I remember I had a art history professor. She was talking about it and saying different reasons, and she was talking about how they wanted to say that this is a painting, this is different from real world. And still I'm interested in that part. I'm thinking about it and trying to play around with that idea.